For justice and peace and equality.
All right, we're back. Game Changer Media Network, Voices of the Village podcast. Dr. Kenia Johnson, Sweetwater.
Kenya, I'm gonna get you.
Kenya. Why do I keep calling her Kenya?
It's just like the country.
Yeah.
Kenya.
I think that's what it is. It's a country, you hear me?
Yes.
And then there's somebody else I know named Kena. But y'all spell it the same way. So I think that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Mental health.
And you're probably gonna have to say Kenia Johnson Lewis. My husband probably gonna be mad.
Kenia Johnson Lewis.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Lewis, trust me, we got you here. I am sorry. Dr. Kenia Johnson, Dr. Kenia J Lewis, Sweetwater Psychological Associates,
Yes.
business owner, covering mental health here in the Metro Atlanta area, also serving virtually, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Tell us about mental health. As we know, is an issue, and you stated something that stood out to me before we went to take, and you said with adults, unresolved trauma. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about unresolved trauma.
So it's often that adults carry a lot of trauma from what happened in childhood, and sometimes these are big, significant traumas that include abuse or neglect. And individuals have learned how to function in spite of the trauma. But as we get older, if we don't deal with it, it impacts a lot of different areas of our life and our relationships with other people. I also, when I'm talking about trauma, I mean the accumulation of smaller traumas, right? So trauma doesn't always have to be one big significant event.
Okay.
It can be actually multiple smaller type of traumas that, when added together, affect us in big ways. Okay. So oftentimes I'll see adults that have not really resolved issues with parents or loved ones, people that have hurt them, wronged them, and it really impacts how they interact with other people and also how they see themselves. So we get a lot of issues with self-esteem and self-image, but also learning how to trust yourself. So when you experience a trauma when you're really young, you're violated in a lot of ways, and it's hard to trust yourself and others, and how do you make decisions. And so as you get older, you start to do these patterns and relive these types of patterns. And then at some point, you start to question, okay, can things be better? And usually that's what I see coming in. And how can things be better?
That's an interesting point. And but the funny thing is, I've witnessed that a lot in working with different people. I've worked with a host from men to women, different nationalities. But what I'm seeing culturally now is it's almost like an oxymoron, because we say we're healed in the name of Jesus, but then I'm hearing a culture of people saying they're searching for their healing. Does that make sense to you? Help us unpack that, because in one phase, okay, we have in our community, we have a culture that says, hey man, I'm healed in the name of Jesus. I'm healed. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And they like, bam, because we're most of us are religious based. We're religious based culture. But then it's kind of like when Sunday morning we're healed in the name of Jesus, but Monday through Saturday, it's like I'm in my healing process. I'm healing from this, and it seems to be an ongoing thing that never ends.
Well, I guess my take on that is, I think you're right. In the Black community, most African Americans have a very strong, they're strongly rooted in their faith and spirituality.
Right.
But that is also that's a good resource to have, something that you can connect to, right? And so using religion and spirituality and Christianity to find that source of whether it's motivation or healing or support, those are all good things. I think what happens is it's hard to figure out the right way to apply those teachings. And when you add in the different aspects of the world that we can't control, so people, work, those things,
Right.
it makes it that much more complex to apply the things that we know. So take something from the Bible, right? The Bible teaches us about forgiveness, right? And prosperity. Well, I understand that message. I got it. I'm going to forgive those that, transgress against me.
Right.
However, when I'm out on Monday and I meet a lot of transgressions, it is harder to implement that, right? I'm human.
Correct.
I feel, I get annoyed, frustrated, disappointed, all those things.
Correct.
And so it's just harder to implement that. So the way I see it is that it is a process, and it should be. What we're all really striving to do is be better today than we were yesterday. That's really what it's coming down to. And trying to do that in spite of our past. That's what we're trying to get at. So I don't see it necessarily as an oxymoron, or, people aren't really applying it well. I think it's all a process. And that's really, when people say life is a journey, that's part of it. It is a journey. It doesn't end. You don't stop growing. You don't stop trying to get better.
Wow, that's an amazing take on it. And when you come from that, now most of the time, it's like when the healing and that trauma from your childhood comes in, the people who suffer are the people who are closer to you. Mm-hmm. The people that you actually live in the house with, the people that you spend the most time with, they seem to become the punching bag of your trauma. Mm-hmm. How do we practice better habits from packaging that trauma and not it being such an aggression towards the person that you're with or your children or
yes.
Yeah.
Well, that is a very interesting interesting question, and the answer is complicated because the reason why the things that are unresolved with us tend to impact the ones we're closer to is because we are at our most vulnerable with the people who are safe for us to do that. Wow. So you have to think in some ways, and I'm speaking generally about trauma, but when there is a trauma, typically I don't have control of what happened to me. And I didn't have control of the aftermath of that. But I have somehow gussied it up to build this other life, hopefully. And I'm now with people that I trust and feel safe. And I don't have to have a whole lot of control of things. But I'm trying to kind of manage my feelings and emotions. And it spills out into these relationships. It's kind of safe to do so because these people are going to be here and they're not going to hurt me. In a way. So, that's, just the surface of it, but that's why it gets complicated, and that's why it sort of spills out into these other relationships. And to be honest, those are the reasons why people might seek mental health support, because they see that toxicity is impacting the people that they love and actually want.
And equality. Now the world they will see. That's